Hey investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey and I'd like to wish you and your dad a happy Father's Day. And since it's the Day of the Dads, I wanted to reread the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book by Robert Kiyosaki, which originally came out in 1997, and I borrowed the most recent edition of this book from my local library. And I might have read this book when I was a teenager, but I clearly didn't retain much of it, so I decided to read it like I was reading it for the first time and see how I would react to the lessons. And even though I know Robert Kiyosaki has garnered some controversy in recent years, I tried to give the book the benefit of the doubt and try to find key takeaways nonetheless. And if you're also on the journey of trying to achieve financial freedom for you and those you care about, I'd love if you could please like and subscribe to my video and YouTube channel because it greatly helps out with the algorithm and because I'm here to help you and myself achieve that financial freedom. Thanks. In my personal finance journey, I realized the path for me to achieve financial freedom required that I become an investor like Warren Buffett. So I've developed an appreciation for the merits and appeal of being a business owner, and there aren't any business owners among my immediate and extended family members. Most of them are professionals who gained advanced education, and I did the same, just like they did. And I guess we could all benefit from having figurative rich fathers or grandfathers, in my case, Warren Buffett. Robert paints contrasting attributes of his rich and poor dads, the poor one being Robert's actual father, and the other rich one being his friend Mike's dad. And Robert's poor dad was a highly educated PhD who valued job security and government entitlements, and whose views on money Robert didn't end up adopting. In a similar way, my parents value security, and they always stress the importance of having health insurance. So growing up, I made it a goal to make sure I had jobs where I had health insurance. But I realize now that there are many pathways to wealth that go beyond securing a job with benefits. Supposedly in 2016, the real identity of Robert's rich dad was revealed to be Richard Kimi, and his friend Mike's real identity is supposedly Alan Kimi. And whether there was a real rich dad or not doesn't really matter. It's more important to me to learn from the lessons about a different mindset on money and risk management. Robert wrote that one of the reasons the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class struggles in debt is because the subject of money is taught at home and not in school. And actually, like in 6th grade, I remember having a very brief financial literacy class on how to balance a checkbook and other basic money concepts, but definitely not a deep dive into really being able to understand money. And some of it I did learn at home from my parents in learning about their mortgage payments and interest and how all of that worked. But other things I had to figure out mostly on my own, like the FAFSA for student loan applications or other kinds of scholarship related things. Like sometimes we all just go through financial stuff through trial and error, and in some families, you're lucky if you talk about it with your parents or extended family members, and other times you're sort of trying to figure it out on your own. Even though this is a controversial generalization, and I kind of take it with a grain of salt, Robert asserts that poor parents tell their children to stay in school and study hard, and then end up with a poor person's financial programming and mindset. And I think that you end up like that only if you're not self-aware enough to want something else for your life. Like if you just think that you go to school, get a job, and that's it, then maybe you end up with a mindset where you're just consuming and not necessarily generating more cash flow through productive assets. But if you come to the realization that maybe having only a certain amount of income a year is not enough, and you actually want a more comfortable future for yourself, then you might try harder to do things like invest and not end up with a poor person's state of mind. This book is more of a psychological pep talk rather than a how-to to get people to want to be on a productive financial journey. And there are a bunch of truisms in this book, like how life pushes you around and either you submit to it or you choose to fight, or how if you have no guts, you'll give into a life where you avoid risk and just play it safe. Robert also included some contrasting idioms that his rich and poor dads would say, and imagine something like you have an angel and devil on your shoulders giving you conflicting advice, like how poor dad would say, the love of money is the root of all evil, while Rich Dad would say the lack of money is the root of all evil, or how Poor Dad would say, I'm not interested in money, and Rich Dad would say, money is power. Robert reinforces that self-doubt can hold people back, and I agree with that because in the real world, it makes sense that the degree to which one has tenacity and audacity can decide one's future. And even though Robert is really critical of the school system, he also graduated and got jobs early in his life so he could make money and learn how to sell before he then went on to building his real estate and other businesses. I agree with the central premise of the book in that in order to gain wealth, we need to gain financial education. And it boils down to how hungry we are to learn. We are all capable of figuring out new ways to do different things and that we didn't necessarily learn formally. To have financial intelligence or IQ in order to gain financial independence, Robert recommends having knowledge in the broad areas of 1, accounting, 2, investing, 3, understanding markets, and 4, the law. And when we know enough about these things, it opens up more financial options to us. Robert attributes this idea from Rich Dad as the #1 lesson in that the poor and middle class work for money and the rich have money work for them. And the main reason stems from how taxes affect different types of income. When people have earned income from a job, they're taxed based on a tax bracket where there's progressive rates of taxes increasing the more earned income that someone makes in a year. In contrast, investors and business owners may be generating other types of income from assets that may be subject to different types of taxes, like capital gains tax, which can sometimes be lower than the amounts in an income tax bracket table. And therefore, someone with a lot of assets generating income could be proportionally taxed less than someone with a similar amount of income who got it from a job. Another reason is because business owners or a corporation can deduct eligible business expenses before they are taxed on the income that's left. And this is opposite from someone who gets earned income from a job where they're taxed first and then they survive on what's left. And this is arguably one of the most attractive reasons to form a business and why Robert says that the rich and corporations have layers of legal protection that protect them from lawsuits, and the individual behind the corporation doesn't own much to his or her name. Robert includes simple diagrams of the general direction of cash flows among the different wealth classes, and I like how he points out that the rich try to have more in their asset column and they treat every dollar like their employee. And the only thing is, while I understand he's trying to give a generalized picture, I think it's a little bit misleading to only draw a line for the middle class as though their income is going directly to their liabilities and expenses and making it seem like they don't have any assets. And also how for the rich, he kind of seems to skip right from assets to income without also incorporating liabilities in that line direction. So maybe what might be a more accurate way is to draw thicker lines through some of the boxes on the balance sheet and income statement as to how the cash flows across all the different wealth classes. The concept of paying ourselves first is something I've come across in other resources, and it's not only a good business capital allocation move, but it's also really helpful for us as everyday people. And we all have the choice of how we direct the cash we have coming in. And all it comes down to is a matter of self-discipline and fortitude. If you want to be wealthy, it makes sense to be channeling your cash into assets that produce more cash. And those who aren't wealthy generally don't direct cash flows this way. It's usually just spent on consuming things that are then gone. From what I've learned in this book and other places, it does seem like a lot of people have benefited from Section 1031 in the tax code and been able to delay paying taxes on real estate capital gains by rolling the gains into the purchase of another property, usually one that's maybe equivalent or bigger in size. And although it does seem appealing, for now I'm just going to sort of gloss over how Robert is kind of heavily pushing real estate investing. Robert is trying to get a rise out of people by saying the less wealthier classes acquire liabilities that they think are assets. So in essence, if you own your house and it's taking money out of your pocket, then it's a liability. But instead, if you own a rental house and it's generating income from tenants, then that's considered an asset because it's putting money into your pocket, according to Robert. There are definitely some questionable things that Robert suggests, like how you want to be as close to the inside of insider trading without doing anything illegal, which I totally think is misleading. And he's encouraging speculative behavior by saying things like, you want to hear about the next boom, get in, and then get out before the next bust. And of course, we all want to have as good of information as possible when it comes to making good investment decisions. But I don't think that he's really encouraging the right way to go about investing, because the way that Robert is trying to convey this information is really not like how Buffett does it. Buffett is all about investing in good companies for the long term, whereas Robert seems to be encouraging short term trading instead of investing. Overall, I think there are some decent takeaways from the book in how you want to stack the financial odds in your favor if you want to be wealthy. And I agree that it requires some imagination and creativity on our part to either find or realize some investment opportunities. And I like how Robert says to find heroes who make it look easy. And I don't know if investing is really that easy, but it is simple, as my heroes Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett would say. The final takeaway is to take action and develop our financial aptitude so we can achieve financial independence. And with that, I'd love if you could please like and subscribe, and please leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And I wish you well on your journey toward financial freedom. Till next time.